It all started 5 years ago, when I decided to open a chain of coffee shops in our city. My husband Sam supported this idea and became my business partner. We invested all our savings and took out a bank loan. The first 2 years were very difficult. I had to work 16 hours a day to make our project work. The thing is, I've always dreamed of my own business. I was sick and tired of working in the office, and I wanted freedom and independence. And I proposed to my husband. "Let's open a coffee shop, we will succeed." And he gladly agreed. We invested all our savings in it, took out a bank loan. We rented a room on the central street and bought equipment. I was involved in interior design, menu design, and staff recruitment. Sam handled all the accounting and legal issues. We worked together as a good team. When our first coffee shop opened 3 months later, it was a real celebration. I remember how proudly Sam and I stood at the entrance and greeted the first visitors. We were worried about whether we would succeed, but people really liked it. The first month was not easy. We both gave our best, working from morning to night. Sometimes I stayed overnight on the couch in the back room to make it in time for the opening in the morning. But our hard work was paying off. There were more and more visitors. 6 months later, the coffee shop began to make a good profit. We started thinking about opening a second location in another area of the city. I was over the moon with happiness. The dream came true. We had our own small family business. However, trouble soon occurred, which I want to tell you more about. The fact is that Sam's mom, Vanessa, was against our idea of a coffee shop from the very beginning. She thought we were risking money and time for nothing. I often repeated it to Sam when I met him.
"Drop this gamble. It's time to get serious."
But we didn't pay attention to her words. Sam just waved it off.
"Mom, mind your own business."
And I tried not to cross paths with Vanessa at all. We never really got along. She considered me a daughter-in-law, not from their circle. However, when our coffee shop started making steady profits, Sam's mom suddenly changed her attitude. In the meantime, I want to say this. When you start a business, especially with your spouse, it is very important to think through all the legal and financial aspects in advance. Clearly assign roles, issue documents, and specify the percentages of each participant. Otherwise, conflicts may arise later, as happened in my case. Believe me, it's better to spend time on it right away than regret it later. But first things first. My mother-in-law suddenly turned from a fierce opponent into the most active supporter. She started calling Sam a lot and giving him advice on how to handle things. She came to visit us and discuss development plans for a long time. I immediately sensed something was wrong. Everything has changed too dramatically. I tried to explain it to Sam, but he waved me off.
"Come on, Mom just changed her mind. She wants to help us."
But I didn't like it at all. And my suspicions were confirmed when we started preparing the opening of the second coffee shop. Vanessa suddenly announced that she was ready to invest a large sum in our business. But at the same time, she demanded that the documents for the new institution be issued only for her and Sam, without me. Imagine my husband and his mother. I was in shock. How could Vanessa do that? It was originally my idea, my dream. I put all my strength into the business. Sam and I created everything together from scratch. And then his mother suddenly decided to survive me and take everything for herself. I made a scene for my husband. I screamed, I cried. But Sam just looked away and muttered,
"Come on, Mom. Laura, I had nothing to do with it."
In the end, I gave an ultimatum. Either that bitch Vanessa descends from heaven to earth, or I leave and take half the business with me. And do you know what the most annoying thing is? Sam never took my side. I didn't say anything when that harpy was shouting insults in my face. I realized that my own husband had betrayed me and sided with my mother. For the sake of money and profit, they were ready to throw me out of our common business. It was so painful and scary to realize. But there was nowhere to retreat. And I made a decision. I felt betrayed and lost. We worked so hard together to launch the first cafe. And then his greedy mother suddenly decided to take everything away and throw me overboard. That evening, I packed my things and went to a friend's house to think about the situation. It was very painful to realize that Sam was willing to betray me and our love for the sake of profit. But I wasn't going to back down. In the morning, I went to a lawyer to file for divorce and divide the property. Fortunately, we had a prenuptial agreement, and half of the shares of the coffee shops went to me. As you can imagine, Sam and his mother were raging with rage. But there's nothing to do. The law is on my side. After that, the real war began. I decided that since Sam chose Mom instead of his wife, we would now run the business separately. I found a great place on a parallel street and opened my own coffee shop there. Of course, it wasn't easy at first because Sam already had his regular customers. But I didn't give up. She did everything to attract people to her. She invited a popular barista who worked for Sam, but clashed with his mother. I ordered exclusive pastries from the best bakery in the city. I came up with creative promotions and discounts for visitors. And my efforts have paid off. Within a couple of months, my coffee shop became a popular meeting place for the townspeople. They started writing about us on Instagram, and many people made reposts. And Sam's mom was green with envy, looking at my successes. A year later, I managed to completely buy out Sam's share in our old coffee shops. Thus, the whole business was in my hands, and my ex-husband was left with nothing. His cafe suffered losses due to falling demand. As they say, revenge is a dish that is served cold. Unfortunately, many people are willing to commit treason for the sake of money. That's why now I always spell out everything as clearly as possible in contracts and don't let emotions get in the way of my work. It's been 3 years since I bought out all the shares of our family coffee shops and became the sole owner of this business. A lot has changed during this time. In the first months after my divorce from Sam, I completely immersed myself in my work. I was only thinking about how to expand the network of our cafes, open new outlets, and hire staff. I literally lived in an office and traveled around the city in search of suitable premises. She returned home only at night to get some sleep before the new working day. On the one hand, this crazy download helped me distract from the pain of betrayal and not think about the fact that Sam and I had a 10-year life that collapsed overnight. But deep down, I felt terribly lonely and lost. Sam and I had been together since the Institute, and I sincerely loved him and believed that he loved me too. And then, in one moment, everything fell apart, like a house of cards. And then one day, when I stayed late at work, developing a plan to expand the network, there was an unexpected knock on my office door. I was surprised. All the staff had gone home a long time ago, and the guard said that he had not let anyone else in. There was a barely audible groan outside the door. I was wary and asked, "Who's there?" There was silence in response. I carefully opened the door, and there was no limit to my amazement when I saw Sam on the threshold. He was covered in blood, his face was pale, and his clothes were in tatters.
Help me,"
Sam whispered faintly and lost consciousness. I barely had time to grab him and drag him into the office. My heart skipped a beat. What happened to him? I rushed to get a first aid kit and treated his wounds as best I could. There was a lot of blood, several deep cuts. I called an ambulance and the police. While waiting for them to arrive, Sam regained consciousness for a couple of minutes. He was barely moving his split lips and trying to say something. I leaned in to hear him, and he whispered,
"I'm sorry. I was a fool. I shouldn't have betrayed you. I still love you."
After that, he lost consciousness again. I sat there, stunned by his words, and tears rolled from my eyes. Had Sam finally realized how wrong he'd been, and realized how he really feels about me? After all, I never really stopped loving him either, no matter how hard I tried to numb the pain of betrayal with work. When Sam was discharged from the hospital, he asked to come to my house. I agreed, but insisted on one condition. He would have to tell the whole truth about how he got into trouble. And so in the evening, over a cup of tea, Sam told me a shocking story. It turns out that his mother, Vanessa, owed a large sum to local bandits a few years ago. The racketeers demanded to repay the debt, but the old lady did not have that kind of money. And then Vanessa decided to take over our business together with Sam in order to pay off the creditors. That's why she suddenly changed and began to interfere in our affairs in every possible way, and then demanded to rewrite the cafe for herself. When I left and took half of the property, Vanessa's plans collapsed. And then she set bandits on her own son, forcing Sam to pay off for her debts. I was shocked by his story. How could this woman do such a mean thing? To use Sam and me for their own purposes, and then just give my son to bandits? I couldn't wrap my head around it. But there was no time for emotions right now. I knew Sam was in grave danger. He had to be hidden urgently. The next day, I bought him a train ticket to another city and gave him some money for the first time. Before leaving, Sam looked into my eyes for a long time and spoke softly.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I've never stopped loving you.
I hugged him one last time and promised that he could always count on my help. And now Sam's not around, but I don't regret my decision. The main thing is that he's safe, and I'll deal with Vanessa and her debts separately.